I need to tell you about the night my husband threw a steak at my boss's window. Yes, you heard that right. A steak. At a window. At my boss's house. Before I get to that catastrophic moment, you need to understand something about my husband, Mike. Mike is the sweetest man alive. He's kind, he's loving, and he makes me laugh every single day. But Mike also has this special talent for doing the dumbest things at the absolute worst possible times. I'm talking about the kind of things that make you question reality. Like the time he tried to impress my parents by fixing their sink and flooded their entire kitchen. Or when he decided to trim our neighbor's tree as a surprise and accidentally cut their power line. Mike doesn't mean to cause chaos. It just follows him around like a loyal puppy. So when my boss, Linda, invited us to dinner at her place, I felt two very conflicting emotions. On one hand, I was thrilled. I had just started this amazing new job, and I'd been working really hard to build a good relationship with Linda. This invitation felt like a huge step forward in my career. On the other hand, I was absolutely terrified. The invitation came on a Tuesday afternoon. Linda stopped by my desk with that warm smile of hers, and said she'd love to have my husband and me over for dinner on Friday. Just a casual evening, she said. Get to know each other better outside of work, she said. It'll be fun, she said. I smiled and thanked her, but inside my brain was screaming. All I could think about was every single time Mike had embarrassed me in public. And trust me, there were plenty of examples to choose from. The next few days were torture. Every time I thought about Friday night, my stomach would twist into knots. I tried to prepare Mike. I sat him down for multiple conversations about how important this dinner was. Mike, this is my boss, I told him. My actual boss. The person who controls my career. Please, please, please just be normal for one evening. He looked genuinely offended. When am I not normal? He asked. I just stared at him. I didn't even know where to begin with that question. By Thursday night, my anxiety had reached peak levels. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, playing out every possible disaster scenario in my head. What if Mike said something inappropriate? What if he spilled red wine all over Linda's white carpet? What if he somehow managed to set her apartment on fire? I barely slept that night. And when Friday morning came, I was so anxious that I actually considered calling in sick. But that would have been even worse. Linda would have been disappointed, and I'd have to explain why. I bailed at the last minute. Then I had what seemed like a brilliant idea. What if Mike just didn't come? What if I told Linda he was sick or had to work late? Problem solved, right? So that afternoon, I casually mentioned to Linda that Mike might not be able to make it. I tried to sound disappointed, but I'm pretty sure my relief was showing through. Linda's face fell. She looked genuinely upset. Oh no, she said. I really hope he can make it. I've prepared this whole dinner for 3 people. I was really looking forward to meeting him. My heart sank. There was no way out now. I couldn't disappoint her like that. I forced a smile and assured her that Mike would definitely be there. He'd find a way, I promised. I immediately regretted it. Friday evening arrived way too fast. I spent an hour getting ready, changing outfits 3 times. I gave Mike the most intense pep talk of his life. I made him promise, swear, and pinky promise that he would be on his absolute best behavior. No weird jokes, I said. No random facts nobody asked for. No touching things you shouldn't touch. Just smile, nod, and let me do most of the talking. Mike held up 3 fingers. Scout's honor, he said. I will be so normal tonight that you'll forget I'm even there. That should have been my first warning sign. We arrived at Linda's apartment right on time. She lived in a beautiful building downtown, and her place was on the 3rd floor. As we walked up to her door, I grabbed Mike's hand and squeezed it hard. One final reminder to behave. Linda greeted us with a huge smile. Her apartment was gorgeous, tastefully decorated, with a stunning view from the dining room window. She'd clearly put a lot of effort into this evening. And here's what surprised me, it was just the 3 of us. No other coworkers, no other guests. Just me, Mike, and Linda. Somehow this made me feel slightly better. Fewer people meant fewer witnesses if something went wrong. Plus, crowds tended to bring out Mike's more unpredictable side. The first 30 minutes went shockingly well. Linda was an amazing host, and the conversation flowed naturally. She asked Mike about his job, and he actually gave normal, reasonable answers. No weird tangents. No embarrassing stories. Just pleasant dinner conversation. She served us these beautiful steaks with roasted vegetables and mashed potatoes. Everything looked absolutely delicious. I took my first bite of steak, and it was cooked perfectly. I started to actually relax. Maybe I'd been worried for nothing. Maybe tonight would be fine. Maybe Mike really could be normal when it mattered. I should have known better. Linda excused herself to check on dessert in the kitchen. Mike and I were alone at the dining table. I was savoring another bite of that delicious steak, finally allowing myself to enjoy the evening. That's when I noticed something weird in my peripheral vision. You know that feeling when your brain registers that something strange is happening, but you can't quite process what it is? It was like that. Some movement that didn't make sense. I turned my head to look at Mike, and what I saw made absolutely no sense. He was holding his steak in his hand. Not with a fork. In his actual hand. And he was holding it above his plate. Maybe an inch or two up, like he was weighing it or examining it. Before I could even open my mouth to ask what on earth he was doing, everything happened in slow motion and fast forward at the same time. Mike pulled his arm back, like a pitcher winding up for a fastball. And then he threw the steak. He actually threw it, baseball style, full force, directly at the dining room window. The steak flew through the air in this perfect arc. It hit the closed window with a loud thunk that echoed through the apartment. And then, almost comically, it slowly slid down the glass, leaving a greasy trail behind it. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't process what I just witnessed. My brain completely short-circuited. This wasn't just dumb. This wasn't even in the same universe as the usual dumb things Mike did. This was insane. This was beyond comprehension. I stared at him with what must have been the most confused, horrified expression a human face has ever made. And Mike stared back at me with pure terror in his eyes. He looked like a man who had just watched his own hand betray him. Like his arm had acted independently of his brain. For a split second, we just sat there, frozen, both of us trying to understand what had just happened. Then I heard footsteps. Linda was coming back from the kitchen. She'd definitely heard that noise. There was no way she hadn't. Reality crashed down on me like a tidal wave. It didn't matter why Mike did it. It didn't matter what he was thinking. What mattered was that in approximately 3 seconds, my boss was going to walk into this room and see a steak on her windowsill. I felt rage flood through my entire body. My face went hot. My hands started shaking. For one brief moment, I considered trying to help Mike somehow. Maybe I could make up some excuse. Some explanation that would make this seem less insane. But no, absolutely not. This was Mike's mess. This was his catastrophically stupid decision. He made this bed of idiocy, and he could lie in it. There was no recovering from this anyway. No explanation in the world would make throwing a steak at a window seem reasonable. Linda walked into the dining room. Her eyes immediately went to the windowsill, where Mike's steak sat like a greasy, meaty crime scene. She stopped walking. She just stood there, staring at it. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The silence stretched on forever. It felt like hours, though it was probably only 15 or 20 seconds. But those were the longest seconds of my entire life. The three of us formed this horrible triangle of awkwardness. Linda and I were both staring at Mike, waiting for him to explain himself. The ball was completely in his court. The cringe hung in the air like thick fog. You could practically see it. Mike finally spoke. Well, spoke might be too generous a word. He made sounds that vaguely resembled words. He paused, his face bright red. I'm really clumsy. I grabbed it wrong and it just flew. It flew. The steak just flew. That was his explanation. He looked at me desperately, silently begging me to back him up, to support his ridiculous story, to save him from this nightmare he'd created. I said nothing. I just looked at him with the coldest stare I could manage. Not a chance. I wasn't going down with this ship. He was drowning alone. The silence continued. It was deafening. Mike stood up awkwardly and shuffled over to the window. He picked up his steak with the saddest, most pathetic movements I'd ever seen. Then he grabbed some napkins and made a weak attempt at cleaning the window. The grease smear just spread around. It was painful to watch. Linda, bless her professional heart, decided to throw us all a lifeline. She turned to me and asked a question about work. Something about a project deadline. I grabbed onto that conversation like a drowning person grabbing a life raft. We both dove into work talk with way too much enthusiasm, speaking a little too loudly, laughing a little too hard at things that weren't funny. The rest of the dinner was surreal. We all collectively agreed, without saying it out loud, to pretend Mike didn't exist. It was the only way to move forward. Mike sat there in silence, poking at his retrieved steak, while Linda and I carried on this elaborate performance of normalcy. We talked about office politics. We discussed upcoming projects. We even laughed about workplace gossip. All while Mike sat there like a ghost, invisible and ignored. Somehow we made it through dessert. Somehow we made it through coffee. And somehow, miraculously, we made it to the end of the evening. The moment Linda's apartment door closed behind us, the moment we were safely in the elevator, Mike exploded into nervous chatter. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I can explain, it's not what you think, well actually. It's exactly what you think, but there's a reason, I swear there's a reason. I didn't say a word. I just walked to the car in complete silence. Mike followed behind me like a puppy who knew he'd done something wrong but didn't quite understand why it was such a big deal. We got in the car. I gripped the steering wheel. I stared straight ahead, and then I said, in the calmest, most dangerous voice I could produce, explain. And oh, did he explain. The explanation somehow made it even worse. The steak was undercooked, he started. It was really rare. Like, really rare. I don't like rare steak, you know that. And I didn't want to be rude by not eating it, but I also didn't want to eat it, so I thought. You thought throwing it out a window was the solution? I interrupted. No. Well, yes, but I thought the window was open. His voice got higher and more desperate. I swear I thought it was open. I looked at it and I could have sworn I saw it was open, so I thought I could just casually toss it out and nobody would notice. I turned to look at him. You thought you could casually toss a steak out of a third-story window and nobody would notice? I thought you were both distracted, he said. And I thought it would just fall down outside and that would be the end of it. How was I supposed to know the window was closed? Maybe by using your eyes? I suggested. Or, here's a crazy idea, by using literally any other solution? Like putting it in a napkin? Or just leaving it on your plate? Or, and this is really revolutionary, actually telling Linda you prefer your steak more well done? Mike deflated. He knew there was no defending this. I panicked, he said quietly. I made a stupid decision. I'm sorry. We drove home in silence. I was too angry to speak, and Mike was too ashamed to try. The following Monday at work was excruciating. I kept expecting Linda to call me into her office and tell me I was fired. Or that my career would never advance. Or that she was transferring me to the basement. But she didn't. She acted completely normal, professional, kind. She even smiled at me in the hallway. It was like the steak incident had never happened. Except we both knew it had happened. It hung in the air between us, this unspoken acknowledgement of the bizarre thing we'd witnessed together. We'd reached an understanding we would never speak of it again. Months passed. Almost a full year, actually. My career continued just fine. Linda remained a great boss. She never held that night against me. But she also never invited me to her home again. Can't say I blamed her. Then came the company Christmas party. Linda had just moved into a beautiful new house, and she decided to host the party there. She sent out invitations to the whole team. +1s are welcome, the invitation said cheerfully. I looked at that invitation for a long time. Mike saw me reading it and immediately said, "Don't worry, I'm not going." "You're not invited," I confirmed. "I know," he said. "I've accepted my fate." So I went to the Christmas party with my best friend Jenny instead. Linda's new house was gorgeous. The party was lovely. Everyone had a great time. And nobody threw any food at any windows. Here's the thing about being married to someone like Mike. He drives me absolutely crazy sometimes. He makes decisions that make no logical sense. He acts without thinking things through. He creates chaos in the most unexpected moments. But he's also the person who makes me laugh until I cry. Who supports me unconditionally. Who loves me with his whole heart. Who turns everyday life into an adventure, even if that adventure sometimes involves flying steaks. The steak incident became a story we told at parties. Well, I told it at parties. Mike tried to avoid the subject whenever possible. But eventually, even he started to see the humor in it. Sort of. At least I was right about one thing, he said once. What's that? I asked. The steak really was undercooked. I threw a pillow at him. Years later, whenever we drive past Linda's old apartment building, Mike gets this look on his face. This mixture of shame and disbelief, like he still can't quite believe he actually did that. I really thought that window was open, he'll mutter. And I'll just shake my head. Because that's marriage, isn't it? Loving someone despite their tendency to throw meat at closed windows. Or maybe because of it. I haven't quite figured that part out yet. All I know is this: I'll never take Mike to a boss's house for dinner ever again. That's just common sense. But I'll also never forget the look on Linda's face when she saw that steak slowly sliding down her window. Some moments in life are so perfectly, horrifically awkward that they become timeless. They transcend normal embarrassment and become legendary. And the steak incident? That's definitely legendary. So that's my story. The night my husband threw a steak at my boss's window because he thought it was open and didn't like how his meat was cooked. It happened. It really happened. And somehow, I'm still married to him. If you've ever been embarrassed by your partner in public, drop a comment below. Trust me, it probably wasn't as bad as throwing a steak at your boss's window. Probably. Thanks for listening to this absolutely ridiculous true story. If you want to hear more tales of relationship chaos, life disasters, and moments that make you question your life choices, subscribe to Timeless Whisper. We're here to remind you that no matter how awkward your life gets, someone out there has definitely done something worse. And if you're wondering, yes, Mike and I are still happily married. No, he's never thrown food at a window since then. And yes, Linda did eventually forgive us, though she made sure to seat us far away from any windows at future company events. Until next time, remember, always check if the window is actually open before you throw anything. That's just good life advice.